Ale samlo ani chidle ani tathari Thosum lekmel gi lerim sisinange samala ani samti ta dane ani thari Thosum gi lekmel de kame mananya la andade de sane de la andade Minnesota la kame chede yore an khazira late Rennie Nicole ka da thongwe o de la andade krijidin sobe 그래 상마 사슈네 당한주기 두세 남게다 아니 오라나미다 상마라 아니 prayers that they use right the three the Thosum legmedela manjugi Minnesota ki Bridgidin sobegi di leshi di lonis ngela samrero lonis ngela ani di legmed di mangche shungela tuni ani shayore Sabe shunge handa di lobjon da niya leadership da civic engagement da career na wala yabu chungyo da ani inde achieve chinge sama la sha ere ani mi we gumze di kharlana anzu de sane la da di peba pu mangu yore high school da therim la jar jonge ani denzo la cik hamjo thene ani ya cik soso la samya cik intrigue cik do o di sabe o di mikne the Thosum lane nanbyune ta azu thöya mahu thögo ra thingsa dela ani azu the technology dinju sama fingertip lare ine how much information are evidence based da research da inde yigo di marazu samsam district filter chedung do thingsa ani the information mangbo yo samgi sama la Pendo yowa kegi yo marera academic background yo kego mare especially technology now la garbage in and garbage out la ni formula di yo rerwa ta ine thari Thosum chok di nganju handa thak shungge district gyapjon da lobjon yapo yugyo da ani denzo la tuni nganju Minnesota ki beri pinda da ani lobchu da awa changma denyam do zom kyansu di experience da journey di pashe chi ani Quran so la tiwa yuna and the ne pa zo tiwa tele and the thari ki lerim di khande ina na thangbo de la de nganzu la chekyap da chekyap da chekyap ni ye ni ja ming ni ja si si re sha di thari ko na gal chang twister cha re sha ya ine Quran ni ja la background the bad contrast da ani pe hangsa ya 먼저 쉔게이네레 먼저 페베 상마 보아게야시도 근데 얘기 코란이기 쉔게 코란이기 잡종디 마슈잉에 나니 코란이자라 introduce 시 아니 한데디 체크업라 코란기 백그라운드 바이오디 쿡스직 슈루시 라인 안 체크업라 차니 아니 체크업라 안디 파주 제로치
저스네 예미라 댄스 체크업이라 니가 더 logo di ani kyani chigelde ani kuchu loda ani tangmodel de samba ani kare mangmi jue gi di sheras di ne kare mi yudo da ani jala ta temu mongta ani mangmi number do thone chen mi di this farmant ani mangmi jue gi di jala mi di la sura ani ni ma chik lobta la kare recruiter jele de ne keja do she ni chu samani khora gi mala di mangmi da juna benefit kare ya ma che ani di ne especially kama nga air force da ni kama la kari top down kari ni kitchen na ni zumba high school thyo da zu ni nga thangshwe zu di emergency management lya chi da ni di losom chi ani ta jala this lya chi de some this yomi ra chi de ni namju lya ra sa engineer che ni oni ra de samani application gyang ni except chi de samana nga oni problem chi ka ju ra lo ni chi jala KC10 na ma de kama na namju mongo pe re ne KC10 air reviewer namna 파주 numte fighter numte bomber numte ne ma de 파주 numte chini joge de engineer chi ni woni lo ju chi ni de jala ya ta nami da bu de sama yang se long chu ga do de na ya wunda ni woni ta ma la command and control na de ju ga ma so woni this sound la do cha wo de ni woni ta ma mi shu ge de chi ani ta ye jarang da wa jik smela ni ta ma ge yu doi air force retire chi ra ni woni chidu saba lya mangshu har chi na recruiter engineer ani command and control che ani ni gi title na da lya har chi na last data na di ge ma to na superintendent da civilian side na operations manager senior operations manager 원디치 원디다 미 시주스키 매니지인데 원디라치
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Vincent Shorop. I came to the United States in 1998, along with my two older sisters and my mom. My dad had been here in the state of Minnesota since '93. When I first came here, it was such a sort of a world sort of tipped on its head experience because I didn't speak English that very well. At that time, our community was a bit smaller. I didn't necessarily go in and fit in the Tibetan community right away, so I had some of my own friends in the neighborhood who are Americans. But I started at about fourth grade here in the United States. I was a very shy kid. I didn't have the interpersonal skills that I had eventually developed down the road, but very shy kid. Kind of went through the path just because I knew that education was the next thing that I needed to pursue. So at that time, though, in I think I was in 6th or 7th grade, I had a program called TRIO, which was a program that supported first generation and students from low-income backgrounds. So I was qualified to participate, and quite frankly, I didn't even know that I had signed up. Usually as a kid who came to America, you just gave every sort of forms that you received from a teacher and you gave it to your parent, and then they signed it and I give it back to the teacher. That's kind of how it worked out. But I was super happy that I did because that program helped me through middle school, high school, even college, and I even ended up working for the TRIO program as a young profession down the road. Had made some really great friends through networks, and then eventually in high school I participated in the Pesha group here at Tafm, which connected me to Chika and a bunch of other friends that I still am connected with. So I was very fortunate that this community provided me the foundation of network and friendship that I have kept since then, so 25 plus years. I pursued my bachelor's degree in math and minor in management, but I'll be honest, when I went to my college years, I went because St. Olaf gave me a better financial aid, and this was, I was what, 17, 18, and they had a very good food, and they had the TRIO program there. Not every universities have TRIO, which is an extension of support system that you receive. So those are the three reasons I went there. And while I was there, I struggled. It was a very small campus with not a lot of minorities. There were maybe other 4 or 5 of us, but kept in touch with them. That they really helped me sort of process and navigate the college careers. And then after I graduated, I thought, okay, with my math background, I may pursue an MBA. And I went into the corporate world, so to speak. I worked at an insurance company for 3 years, while at the same time I was volunteering for the London tutoring program. That was when I realized that London sort of gave me the purpose that I needed to pursue the career that I wanted. So quick takeaway is, just get your hands wet, go out there and do things, create things with your friends, because London was created between me and my friends who all went to the same college. And that program opened my eyes to the passion and the purpose that it gave me. So after 3 years of working at American Family Insurance, I thought, okay, this is not the job for me. I needed to pursue an education. So that's when I transitioned in 2014. So since then, I've been in the higher education for, 10 plus years. I've worked in various different positions as an academic advisor, financial aid officer. Now I work at the Carlson School of Management in the career services as an employee relations. I enjoy it. It gives me purpose, and I enjoy working with students. And I received my master's from the University of Minnesota as well.
도체 더 캔디자기 갑주모들이 항상 야고도 더 캔 베드런라 Ani kiani ngati nyen shue temperature shukra that the Minnesota Sunny Youth for Umelam gi soksore. Ani understand all of the college the bet hangsa yapuchita ni kazin anzu ni dong sen la anzu Minnesota purichidin sokwa send all of the anzu gi nyamdo collaboration chini nyamru chini the even in the bambuch somre ro. Ani handa the cherab la gi lamde sungya the anzu Minnesota gi sane gi deshi kechimbu chire ro. Anda shunge mangol la chik middle school inere, high school inere, college dongi tenzo la chik roba chia di handui program yore, ani da de la kandis chik nyamshu chigu do yang kashe roba chigi samna, nga zu de ligun de la sheba puna jiri rwa. Tangi anda di chiwa thangbu di nye kya nija lingi rwa. Tanda kya nija yu songsu nye chiwa di ma best stiff me kyo shasa dis flexible chik ma nija la chiwa di gyuya yi. 아니 안다 지워디 랭게 두간에 다 벽에 중나 벽에 인지 중내 인지 야 삼점 아주 벽에 딱바 갓라니야 슈게 된줄라 디스트릭 직 담자 망고 지나야 슈게 된줄 디스트릭 세나지기도 와. so 니 개체셔디 되네 렌다 소소기 컨텐츠 디키줘야디 니 개체 통구도와 다 캬니자데 아리네 야간에 데 페두 로고다 주레샤. so how did that experience shape who you are today? So the things are do ina de pepa pugu mangu chik delaki du ya Koranzola experience kaga jiyorero Koranzola na ya phama khashe ya literacy district gyo yewe kyure khashe ya tuzo gi chane ya mangu chik ta thugo marero ta kyani handa de phage gyane de chugle du gan lo buchu idu gane anda odi gi transition tuzo de gi handa kyansi gi ta kyanso accomplish gyo de khandes shape chiso ta ni kyani sal de di gan ni kyan pangu
다 지당의 교환의处理的다考试的 language barrier 的车辆就교환의的什么인지게 디워도 데 시라 신고 말아 아주 비교 브리티시 잉글리시 나체 내 교환한 잉글리시 찾는다 우리가 당시 language barrier 온데 찾으라 아니 어떤 주제 많이 줄었다 수원으로 내가 다스 그래 마르시가 조이마 마르시가 당고 주제 좀 배바시라 요말 아니 종세 디 종바던데 시라디 배바 요말라 아니 당고 어떤 주제다 sawara so my church do this child che introvert in ba de de saba gare keje she be she ania su inji ge norge ge na mo cha jura ha ju chale ge de sa be chin this thing yang su da ni je da khali ma ju thang bo ni pa lam na de ji dong chang za jin da de yo ra an kwan zu da steve la ju de ani ke la kwan zu ma da the inji homework da gari ne ro chi de ne ani to sia ge ya ne ani 제가 더 배워 마을 마르실레 고주도 참아니 다 저거도 차니 파주로 버치에다 이제 진행이 디스야디 다 칼로레 수수 인지인에 가리네 광적이 로버치 지도 좀 먼저 파주로 버치 지들이 디스 야야 두데가 디스 칼레 뭐 쳤어 아니 셴바데 갈라올라나 다 갸네 비디스 바게 도나지 가르치고서는 아주 갸와 배바이네 가리네 resiliency 지요라 resilient 라지요라 어디 빼야거든 그러나 원이 개주셔 먹미라 유대 resiliency 빼 개침을 먼저 stress environment 가든에 조월에 내가 빼 stressful 이래 선전 추적에 이슈 내가 치고 기다 stress 빼라 resiliency 대신 아니 딱 아주 배바다 가리 인그레이션은 낭취되어라 낭취디 that's stress comes the resolve 치료에다 resiliency the part of stress solving 이라 원이 기억이 딱 this pen 뭐 추서부더라 아니 원이 야야 do this about adaptation because 가르네 아답치에 개침을 빼라 내가 양안이 출래데 아답치던데 야고 배신 상거더라 아니 심박할래나 다 배제 디와기 부마치 가려나 아주 집어지간 처월 language barrier라 코난도 대화 상원치 인지디 야고차에 벽에 많아 줘라 아주 집어지간 인지 가져 식내여라 마다의 차이다 아니 사람 가져 차차도네 로종 가져 치네 랑자 차로다 오니다 resilience 된다라니 this adapt 야고치도 상거더라 오니니 단다보다 adaptation da resiliency de tama ngaranga tanda khares the legal for the late way only chudusangit
I agree with Chukab. I think language barriers and all that, but I think when I first came here I was just excited that I was in America, comparing myself to when I was in India. But one thing I want to say is being born and having lived there for 10 years, looking back at it, I'm really, really happy that I was able to do that. because it gives you a whole different perspective. I think the idea, the culture, the society in India is very different from what we have here. And especially if you look back 30 plus years ago. So I was really fortunate to have that experience, and coming here and when I was 10, again, looking back at it in hindsight, I thought, and I think that it was a great year for me to transition, because I have the memories, I have my experiences, I still have my friends and relatives in India that I can still go back to. But here at 10 years old, it's easier to transition into the new culture. So, but then, through middle school and high school, again, I was shy. You don't know what you don't know. And what I mean by that is, at that time, I didn't realize that I was subconsciously seeing myself as different, as someone who looks and talks in Tibetan and may smell even, who carries a different value. I saw that as a difference than the majority of our American students. At that time, I didn't know how to handle that sort of contrast, right? So then it took a long time for me to kind of accept that. And then in college, again, it was about maybe 10-12% at most student population with diverse background. Majority of them are Caucasians. That's when I really sort of, it hit me in a way that I never thought it would. And then that made me more insecure about myself. As imposter syndrome grew, you felt like you didn't belong in certain spaces because you look different. You're the only Asian or minority person in a classroom. I had to deal with that in a way, and the way I dealt with that was being and surrounding myself amongst people that carried the same value, that came from the same background, and we created a community. So that really helped me to grow. And now where I'm at, 37, I'm so sort of prideful of my background. The reason I say that is because in today's world, you do need different perspectives. You need different experiences. You need different outlook in order for you to navigate all the different various people that you encounter throughout your life. So I'm so happy that I got the opportunity to grow in India, came here. It was a tough transition when I look back, but then it took years for me to realize that my background, my identity is an asset and not a roadblock or not a hurdle for anybody else. It's an asset for myself, and wherever I go. Now, I work in a full-time professional job. I think to myself that yes, I'm different, but I add value to the team. I add value to the culture. I add value to the community. And that's the mind switch that I had to go through, and that took me 20 plus years. I'm in a different mindset. I'm in a much more confident, but hopefully with the less ego, but more of an open-mindedness and more acceptance of who I am as an individual, with various experience and background that I bring to the table whenever I communicate with others.
Kanijagi hadali the hamsa yapukyasura tadisabenija la comment kartulana the kange the differences the challenges the sangma turn around chini kanijagi chik resourceful soya chik chaswa and chik resilient soya ta nangchu ki tik thunda denzo ya pujetani this soya the hamsa anzo peba denzo la chik shiga denzo yore and the gangla and the canzo lo chinju kato inde Tona de Gyoda dinzo idea dinzo pujita dinzo da hangsan ya burelwa ana da shunge mangu yugure and the kanye do te de Gyoda different do feel chigoina da da di korani gi nyamyu di shedu gane dinzo la tona de da ania di jela ya 101 in the kanye keja tinge tuguna and de lemola de fontan ni ana mazuki korani gi sheba anta she korani keja tinge she chen di yorwa the Tiwani were the Chogabla. So, what inspired your decision to join U.S. Air Force? Can you please include specific guidance or preparation or any key decisions from high school or like college?
So nga 주에 디 카리나나 college 디라 지게라 조송 배치보다 공부 배치보시 로다 가르네 공부 배치보시 아범이 요즘에 apply 뭐지 University of Minnesota, St. Olive, Hamlin 근데 tuition there's a 통라 this 방법에 this burden 도 차이다 하나나 조금 뭐지 지게라 배를 먹고 내니 다 수준로도 편에 조송 배공을 통다 어디니 what is the best benefit that the military offers? It's educational benefits, right? It's not just going to school, but it comes with experience. Kanana mangmila judu samba lojun chibu che mare nyamdo lea bicho woni karine ta computer jona computer lea chi lojun chi jira ni chige la kari kechi muzina lojun da kechi mure experience kechi azida kechiachi and then that college the dosun ta umana sul phamana burden this new do da tanga jue the main one dira and new de na it was traveling because as a military member you get to travel so for me that was very beneficial because sure those my first base was in Japan so like Tangwonga base in Japan Japan to me a lot of people want to go there but I actually got to experience to go there and live there you know so that's why joining the military for me was mainly like the educational and travel benefits. 아니 이 중에도 좀 가능한 아주 친절되네 제라다 망미나 얘기다 이제 학군이 말아 there's not a lot that we know. So one thing I wish I knew was you start when you start high school. If you want to get into the Air Force Academy, which is the top college, one of the top colleges in universities in the world pretty much, right? 망미 랑알 Air Force 라요레, Army 라요레, Coast Guard, Navy, Marines 라요레 수행 백학보다 맞춘조 된다 남예 요마라 맞아 resource 비시라 요마라 디스나 technology 라다 YouTube 다 Google 카드네 체라 맞아 이마에 되는 시라 요마라 맞아 뒤뒤 AOL 다도다 야후도 제백 칼리다 이제 디스나 요마라 so I would say start right at high school because 나 high school 마치라 ROTC 라이저 프로그램인데 군중이 가이치다 수주 제마 가르쳐 주면 academy 주나데 enlisted 주나데 college to officer to 가리네 군중 guidance 다 맞아 중요해요 말아. So I would highly suggest you to start when you start high school. Talk to your counselor, see who is the ROTC coordinator, see what you need to do to get into those programs, right? 아니 시바디 갈라나 get involved, community, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever that is. Start. I'm talking about start learning math, anything to do with STEM. Because for me, especially Air Force, there are STEM the big enlisted the officer big so I'll say start doing that, start researching, and then the other thing is enlisted the doing as well as like gesture. That high school doing career lobda 진짜 죽지다 중이라라 우리 테스트 프리 등 부마치다 고급지 부마치다 고급지 아니 노래를 태만이 있다는다 기세다 수주 주역이 되바면에다 테스트 당시 가능하나 테스트 등에다 is valid for 2 years so gadget 토지라 나타 제마땅 오다 먹는 주의로 선나요라 test score the 계획이 소식을 나타친데라 so 먼저 research in lapse score the future다 가지는 나한테나 recruiter 지리도 college 통해 제 아니 퇴근으로 통해다 염나 하이스쿨 통해 this lob좀 마치게 된 줄라 테스트 한거리라 계속 뺏겨 오는 거 그런 거보다 lob가 제가 상바 전부 제사라 basic algebra 다 geometry 다 가리네 나머지 하이스쿨 테스트 타임이라나 그것 때문에 10여 당시 시간은 제마 기식 수수기 땅이 주나 테스트 스코어도 약간 되더라 그 하이스쿨이 정말 fresh라 다 참마 차야 그 거는 테스트 하면도 거는 이게 장난이 뭐 배치우기라 어디 fresh memory 들리더라 that's what I was saying. Also, the biggest thing is take care of your health. This is sure get a career that anxiety, stress, depression. Depression, especially medical, cannot be stress, the anxiety, the depression. You regular so take care of yourself. Only mindfulness, like if I can go back, I'll restart with that, you know. So, but I would just say take advantage, and then also, what I highly recommend is start doing research. Research is the key. No matter what a recruiter says, right? They can tell you, they can sell you on all the good stuff, right? But they don't sell you on the bad stuff. So you have the opportunity now to do the research. You have Google, you have AI, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. You can do a whole lot of research before even like getting in there. I have someone that's already done the research, you know, so he was well prepared. So I'll just recommend doing that. 아니 말아 가르나 근데 진주의 학부모나 I think I could have went a different path, the way different path. Because ये 방법을 burden 가르나 financial 라서 college 상mal RTC program이요. 기지 수수기 college 라 RTC program이나 neighboring college 라 모두기 sponsorship scholarship 딜다. So scholarship ready rana full time scholarship ready somebody 방법을 burden 쳐보 말아. Just like the academy, I wish I knew about the academy when I was young, because you start at the age of 17 when you're junior year in high school. If I had known that, I would have like definitely done that. But that's my recommendation. Is just the main thing is research. Because recruiters will tell you anything you want to hear, not the bad stuff, just the stuff you want to hear. So that's my recommendation.
도체 한데 캬기 디 랭게 두고 티보 카시스 지삼소 under the female applicant in July 카카도 criteria do yorwe niachi KCG US Air Force that apply chinayachi today the super physics the injig requirement yorwe KC the academy now tuna 아니 보이네 보모이네 다야 파마기 부구 땅도 가네 그게 safe yorwe 어디지 그걸 숨었다.
So Pumu Samba, the requirement for joining is between ages 17 to 42, right? So low hanjuma to join chira. Ani 당시들 수수 말라 applicant 몽베라요. push up 지게 치마도네레, sit up 지게 치마도네레, 만 and a half 육샷 까무순주 골게요. just 개고 주말. 콘주이 가르다고 해 determination. Are you giving up or not? If you give up easily, you're not meant to be in the military. Because 고중 이모 딱고 트레이닝 지대라 야게랑 시비가 쳐줄 수수 하고는 이 로바 하시 맞은 이모 당고 보기 하나 두라 push-up 지에 주도말 하다니 좀시 다직스 절 줘라 push-up 맞주 레더실 까먹지는데 원디다 determination is the key. Don't give up. 원디 제 니와디 기밀하다 디어 그래 다 로시 게마로즈나 로순주차 가리네라 pregnant 차이나 you have to wait 1 year after natural birth. The surgery though and if you ever get injured or like take medications or whatnot, you know, keep a record because they look through everything. 고주 갈다고 해 수수 integrity 주마시 됐다고 하다. 먼저 system 거래요나 키라기 social security 짧지 medical history 상모통을 test 월다 키라 주마시도 주는다. 사실 마 anxiety 주마유만 depression 이미지 상모는 근데 걔랑 이동 중이라 내가 맹아들도 내매사도로 이라 딱 그래서 몸이라 가래 integrity first there 주마시 대신 내주라고 오늘 개치 못 뺐다 소문이 나이 academy sorry I apologize so the academy the requirements there are the academy the longer the 지당 트레이너는 노시라 the academy the longer 제 있는 가리 the safety wise 가리아 보는 boarding school 의 집어쳐 왔다 비계랑은 대월에 비계 dorm room the 사무국지 provide 치레 칼라다 개구시 조선장 말다 조선 개구시장 말에 이내 럽종 체를 개침으로 네 GPA maintain 치니 degree requirement이었다 인준이 남기는 토론으로잖아 degree 지겨라 내가 이 주에 아니 시마데 가는 스포츠 상모의 미 상모 mandatory sports 인준이니서 college 상모라 미 상모 캠고래 college sports 요래 football basketball track swim 가리네 academy 정말 집어지게 않고 콘수의 national college 때 집어 차보라 선도 때문에 통일의 college army the college 모델을 두고들이라 so safety wise I would say it's safe because 몸이 막아 나와요라 막아 나와요데 주로데 가지고 윤초만 gate 요래 perimeter 요래 fence 요래 security 컨데라 어디 아니 이거래 야싱의 상 몸이 경한라 어디 this 얘기 this safe tire 성도 아니 방만으로 가리 디어나나 수수 알아 빠졌지 조선 당원 팀만 하나 college the 상목구주 free provide chora. Now the biggest thing though is if you get kicked out for disciplinary reasons or you're failing to meet the academic requirements, then you do get kicked out and you have to pay that money back. That's because it's the taxpayers' money. So for 2 years for going there and then if you get kicked out, that's like estimated between $180,000 and $250,000 you have to pay back the government. So 어느 조에 상당한 so safety net 어디서 막 지구 수수 physical security 지구 말이네 시만도 조에 상당하다 수수 education이다 할인이다. So I would say it's safe, but you also have to think about those too.
그래서 아니 이 치와 next 철업라니와 이 인지도 로셔나 can you share your professional journey and what led to you to pursue master's degree in organizational leadership, and how did this education relates to your experience in your current role as a president of Youth for Women?
So, I think I took an unconventional path, I would say. I think I'll start by highlighting the program that I was part of in middle school, TRIO. Again, it was a middle school educational talent search. They have 7 different programs, some in middle school, some in high school, some in college, so it's a pipeline. Once I got in, the first time I realized that I had a choice was when I went and talked to my advisor, my TRIO advisor in middle school, and they said, you can choose to not go to the assigned high school. And that was the first aha, like, wow, I can actually make my own decision when it comes to education. So I did. I was assigned my neighboring high school, which was Edison, and then I realized I wanted to go to South, which Washburn, which had an aviation program. I was really into airplanes. So I went there for 4 years. So that was a big sort of a aha moment for me. And then, you know, I'll be honest, when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I had no idea. And I'll share this from my own sort of first person perspective, but then also what I've gathered from working with students when I was an advisor in college and what I heard from them. So I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I went anyway because that was the right thing to do, right? And I'm not saying the right as in like that's the only way, because it's not. I think there's, now that I look back at it, you can pursue many different careers and professions and pursue military. There's no right or wrong, but what I mean by right is that that was what was expected of me from the community, from my parents, things like that. So I went to college, again, without any idea what I wanted to do. And at that time, to Chika's point earlier, financial aid was a big concern. My dad and my mom, bless them, because they worked 2-3 jobs for them to send me and my 2 older sisters through college, and it was expensive. And they didn't have, you know, higher paying jobs because they came from India. They worked regular paying jobs, sometimes 2-3 jobs at a time, just so they can support me and my 2 sisters. So that was in the back of my mind. So when I went to college, the second year, during my sophomore year, they had a scholarship for folks that wanted to do a math major, and I applied and I got it. I was so excited, and I was like, "Hey, Dad!" I called him right away. I'm like, "I got a scholarship. You don't have to pay as much." I mean, he still had to pay. You don't have to pay as much, and he was relieved, and that helped me out. So, but was it the right decision? I don't know, because I didn't love being the math major. It was hard. It was very difficult. I think I would have thrived more if it was more of a social, maybe, I don't know, social work, maybe education, that type of a path. I think I would have thrived and excelled in that major versus math. But what it did teach me is math taught me to be more sort of strategic, patient, but also problem-solving skills, because you have to do a lot of that in that major. But at that time, during I think junior year, again, me and my friends co-founded London, which is the tutoring program that we have here at Tafm. We would come here and volunteer every Friday. Every Friday, we would drive all the way up here, tutor students, and go drive back. And after I graduated, I still don't know what I wanted to do. I applied to many different jobs. I got an underwriting position at American Family, and I did that for 3 years. While I was doing that, I was still volunteering, being a tutor, a mentor here at London. And one thing I realized, and this is something I would, you know, really advocate and push for those who are still figuring things out, is to put yourself out there. What you find out, sometimes you may not necessarily like it, but that's still a direction, right? You know that that's not the path you want to pursue. That still gives you a direction. So I've learned that when I drove back to my home, after volunteering here on a Friday evening for 2 hours, after I could, leaving my work, full-time job, I had more energy, I had more excitement in my own sort of purpose than I had driving in Monday morning to the career job that I had. And I paid attention to that, but it took me 3 years, and I was like, well, I need to make sure that if I'm gonna change my career, it's gonna be in education, because that gave me purpose, that gave me excitement, that lit up my passion for what I wanted to do. So 3 years after, there was a position opening at St. Louis College, and I emailed the director. I was like, hey, I was very dramatic. I was like, this is a pivotal moment in my life. I'm switching careers. And she was just like, go ahead and apply. And I did, and I got it. So I worked there for 4 years as a TRIO, Student Support Services academic advisor. So TRIO, again, they support first generation low-income students with disabilities. I was a part of that program because of my first generation background. And the way, there's so many different definitions of first generation. You may be a first generation if your parent, if neither of your parents have a 4-year college degree, you may qualify as a first generation student. And being a first generation student is not something you should be ashamed of. I think it's something that you should be prideful of. But also know that it comes with challenges, also know that it comes with disadvantages in terms of resources. I couldn't go to my mom and dad and say, hey mom and dad, can you help me pick up my classes for the next semester? Because they had no idea. I had to rely that on my counselors, my TRIO advisors at school. So there's that challenge, but it gives you more leverage down the road because you had to develop those skills. You had to develop how to advocate for yourself, how to speak up for yourself, because others won't. You have to say, I need help with this, I need support in this direction, I need help with figuring out how to plan my next 2 years at this college. So you had to really speak up for yourself. So when I worked there, I worked with over 150 students whom I still sometimes keep in touch with today. One thing I've realized is that we put a lot of pressure in our younger students to know that, to have this idea that they should know what they want to do for the rest of their life. And they're 19, 20 years old. And that was a big thing I took away because, and what I would advise the student is that if you know, great, let's figure out how to pursue that. But if you do not know, let's go out there and volunteer. Put yourself out there, experiment. What you like, what you don't like. As you go on the road, I'll use a quick analogy. When you go on the road, right, you will see road signs. And you decide when you want to exit or when you want to come back into the highway, right? I think in life, when you experiment with different things, you realize, okay, this is a road sign. Do I want to exit here because of my experience? Or do I want to continue on this path and still figure out when I need to exit so then I can pursue that path? So keep that in mind. Don't get too overwhelmed with figuring out what you want to do when you're in college. But don't be complacent. Don't just sit there and think, okay, this is going to come to me, because it may not. Because if you're not putting yourself out there in a situation where you have to learn more about yourself, develop skills, learn different skill sets, then you're not gonna know when you need to take that exit and pursue a different path, right? So continue to push yourself out there, get your hands on different things, and then I think one day it will click, like it did for me, fortunately. So I wouldn't, now I work in the career higher education for 10 plus years. And I think your final question, Hamla, was how it sort of contributing to my presidency on the Youth for Umela. There isn't a direct correlation because my job is so different. I work with students, but I think one thing it taught me was that working with a team is gonna be essential, right? So when in my full-time professional job, I work with my colleagues. We have a team of 23 now. And you have to be able to talk to one another. You have to be able to work together to accomplish a goal or pursue a task together. And that takes a team effort. And what that means is, for me, I can be better at communication. I can be better at time management. I can be better at, getting a group of people together to pursue a common goal. And that's a skill set that I took away from my professional job and how it's helped me at Youth for Umela. And one thing I took away is I work at the Carlson School, as I mentioned. I work in the business school, and I work with a lot of different employers who hire students at the college. And I'm learning that, other employers like Aldi or Target, they have ambassadors, student ambassadors on campus. And I'm like, that's a really cool idea. So I initiated the Y4U Ambassadors program at our program, and the application is open right now. Deadline is January 16th, and we were paying $500 for about 6 months of 2 hours each month. But that was an idea that I took away from working in the professional world, is that we can influence but also encourage and create programs that not only give them skills but also financial support, because I would have loved it if I could find an internship within my own community and still gain experience and skill set. So that was one thing I also took away. And I think it's going really well. We have had some really great Y4U ambassadors that has come along in our 2 years so far.
So ta hasaya yang songstra ta dine ngazo perichitin sobeki leshi mangbuchi ki youth engagement kaji yorerwa an ngazo yan samsam shönge chik thama thya da ta thari jawi na moderator ngazo shönge ta de yore ti shönge la tundu gan yan shönge chik china chik amjo khoya le ha ji di ta yan shönge ram di ta dine yan lamdyen chik ge le ya chik durwa ta da chiwa di ngi chogyab la yin Chogam like how the Mangmina you do the Air Force you do the Pazu international travel chi and page dingy lanzo kame chundu gane Germany la yurun buji shushara. Inter travel mangbo nandu gane kyangi and the Tibetan roots the inter strong contestic shy and belan the Tiwaji yirwa. Tiwani the on the lighter note and the Chogam la latest addition to Geshi Ruga Rerwa. That's how me have go Geshi Ruga the she tamye the group tabet 직자 세실라네레 닝실라네레 공로 대실라네 직차기 요래로와 다 이제 쉔게 직캬다 캬기 와이프 니자파게 유디간에 직미 직사와 통두간에 끼우도 젠 로천주주 통두간에 다 고난기 나서나 가서 쉔게 심바든서다 인지나 인지 민지 인디냠 슈치고다 다 데라니 캬 어디 거도 직성로치
So I would say the nima the church down some of the doa chunju de the tinda da ju yewan de doa chame go chu isamsa uni shiran de inune de la ani so for me music, especially Tibetan dance, was a big part for me, because that is also part of the Tibetan culture, right? So Japan they were doing some 얘기 가르치는 파주 제주신 배바드네 자돼 아니 가래 배바기 돈 티베트 하우스다 근데 슈금섭 내가 지금 자돼 진짜니 나 당고 Japan에 doing some 나 아오모리라 suggest 거래니 도쿄 예전이 계시 모라탄도 주도 게스트 오는 게 주도 게스트 아니 당하다 마치 드링을 줘라 네 오늘 비게라 티베트 하우스 doing some 가서다 AOL 야후도 some information 제가 뭐 보면 근데 주로 공부해 줄 선바 가래 같이 제피스톤 지어라 아니 this cover the translation the Google Translate 요 말아 네 이게 티베트 하우스 컨택트 니 파마나 제와치 빙야 심바 제와치 네 주선바 다 배바 하트네 직 예예도다 네 빙야도 니 지도 so Japan에 도 빙야에서 아니 오늘스타 제와시에 고주되니다 건주기 점점 가래 중간 로사가리네 양세에서 파주 대와시니 비게다 도 아니 중앙인도 다니래 로사인도 다니는 지대 마서 이 마치 온데 지대라서 디마 자판절라 오하이오네 배보건 버스도 정말 인지했다 아니디 지구요라 배바했다 아니 때문에 제주 지내는 게서 아니 제주에서 뭐 오드네요 콜럼버스 전에 배바시 봐야 되는 지금 information 파도 베스트다 아니 제가 뉴저지도 정말 경고에 뉴욕 뉴욕이라 뉴욕도 배보 먹고 하고 오라 so 아니 journey 집어지 choose journey la 아주 Frankfurt 네 예우디요 Frankfurt 네 Tibet house 맞이라 Europe 기면 디 Frankfurt 의 기다 아니 배워야면 대화치 니가 비게라 아니 디 대화치다 되는 거기 information 상마 레니 아니 이메일 고레트 고주다 다 노사디레 뒤지디레 되는 거 so only 치바 아니 뒤도서마다 유튜브에 디 스타트되라 유튜브 아니 같이 나가 부니여라 코란이잖아 Tafm da Minnesota ki phebai khari YouTube ta ne de lune ra ma changmat ta de khari de losar chunga khari de da ni khalana ta suzu pige mene chowa de li da ta washing wa do thong ni ta chowa de li da only khare this I think like I was able to keep in group with that but the other thing was in the Air Force what was so great is because kuju diversity la be kesu buje ki ma ta descended this kyote ra ni ma diversity la kesu buje des ma 수수기 language 장기 되바이나 군주기 scholarship 다 배바 하셔야 되나 그래서 그 힌디 비치고다 나이네 비유가스 베게디스 약게 당이 줄이 일본이 베게라 비유라 apply 치 맞지 버리나 아니 코리아고 주스나 just 당고다 just 당 you just need to be elementary level like 약보로 시험 거말 니 elementary level 디 bachelor's 막 군주 accept you 아니 군주 같이 일어나 they hire tutors like to do one-on-one. And so they give you projects like the quarter 주주주기 project 오다 가래 비비자인 제다 가래 article 도 세니 비비라 유라 이 컨디션 프로그램에 아니 아니면 배박이 article 도 아니 인지가 컨디션 프로그램에 가는 거 주의 미 가는나 정말 수수 깨게서다 도케나 translation 데 야고 차이지더라 아니 원데가 가래 야고 주더나 project 이 강나 수수 비유 가정에 주네 고주 단계 송아만치 바이올라 조된바 비유장하다 아니 조선 참고지 등 나와직도 비유장 개경원원 제한이 culture diversity community 최고라 자기 주네 가리는 상만 뒤때는 아니 원디 지네 아니 I was like for me that was like the best thing was because that also kept me with the root because going to Nepal 바오다 되어 주라 배바 빼먹은 거라 아니 파주 계제시에다 등 상마치 아니 쇼라 고시 탑에 내래 비겔라 하가다 가리네 상마 고시 탑디다 so that inspired me to join the Gashiruada because like 개고 망고이 비겔라 탑디다 이제 쉐게시라 통문들아 지당 알아 표시 탑에 거베 얘기메기 하고 나중에 뭐 대화 탑디서 뭐 시에 탑에 디스 거야 아니 마당 얘기메 될리 좀 계시네 그래서 부이자 대화 땅은 고주에래다 마주가 하진 땅은 도고래 키아서 탑기메다로 지살 지에 불 가시는 거다 근데 마당 얘기메 계시더니 또 Gashiru가 주나야 보도 왔음스다 그래서 된다 Gashiru가 계속 가는 데 대셔라 백 계속 자주 무치 안 되는데 시 와이프 가래 아무나다 본 상마 되시기 고시 차도 거울다 마다 시 가는데 키하면도 아니 고주 되시 탑데 마이 차베 거여서 아니 아주 주고 나이 봐 오늘 아니 인스피레이션 올래 딱 오늘 중에 딱 아주 호프 가래는 신경은 제 마스마스에 딱 대자 망치 경고 몽보라 딱 가리가 고연 스파 조디스 많이 신경 망원은 culture이다 개조적으로 culture이 릭슈는 야치더라 so that was like the main point that inspired me
그래서 도체 땅을 지워 타마디 안다 태도네 지워 유나 아니 수고치라 땅이 코란이샤로 지워 타마이 아니 다 달롱 아주 니도 니생하다 니도 니슈자 추디 아주 야름부치게 구된디 아주 센시치기 열애로와 아니 디 야름부치 구된데라니 year of compassion like celebrate 치기 열애로와 What does this celebration mean to you personally? What practical advice or simple action can you share with the youth? How they can practice compassion in their everyday life, either at school, at home, or any other interaction? Maybe
I think first, I mean, His Holiness has done a lot of real work. When I say real, I'm talking about, you know, he's not just talk. He actually goes out in the world and does a lot of meaningful contribution to spread the message of peace, love, compassion. And I've been fortunate to have been in attendance in His Holiness's sort of talks many times. I think that sort of guides me in my moral and my compass in terms of when I engage with others. And then how it sort of, I won't elaborate too much, but how it sort of comes to me in today's context, especially with what's happening in our community here in Minnesota with lots of horrible, horrendous things that we're seeing. One thing I'm realizing is that, His Holiness always encourages dialogue. That's sort of the epitome of the Umelam, the peace talks with China, and dialogue and debate are two different things, right? Debate is you're trying to win your opposition, you're trying to win over the other. Dialogue is you're trying to understand one another without having a result of who the winner is or the loser is. And I think right now in our society, we are focused too much on a debate where we are like, oh, I gotta win, I gotta get this right. And oftentimes that doesn't create cohesiveness, it doesn't create harmony, it creates division, it creates more animosity towards one another, because now you're just trying to feed your ego, your own sort of self-seeking validation that, oh, if I say this and if I don't win, then the other person's not gonna. So I think at this time, His Holiness's message about how to be empathetic, how to create a dialogue for one another is crucial. And I try to practice that in my own personal life. I know most of you probably know this, but I'm not a Trump supporter. But I'm trying to find the courage to reach my hand and talk to those who are. And I've done that. I've actually done that with some of my friends who are Trump supporters and wanting to understand, have that dialogue to get to know the other person on why. Not me trying to say don't do it or don't vote for him, but why. And sometimes that commonality of why and figuring that out helps to sort of alleviate those tensions, and we see each other as a human to human. And that's the whole message of His Holiness, is to engage each other on a human level first, and then the other labels may come in and play a role, but you want to get to know someone else on a human level. And I think that's crucial at this time in our society, in our community. Even, we fight each other, even if we agree on certain topics, because we're just so caught up on trying to get your point across and not listen to the other person, because the other person may have a valid point somewhere in there. We have to give that chance, and vice versa. So for the 90th year of compassion, I think what I'm trying to do is to be a better person, regardless of the other person's views, how it differs from me, how it doesn't, if they don't align with what I think, that's okay. But I'm still gonna give it a shot and I give it a chance to get to know that other person. So that is my goal, and that's what I try to pursue.
Completely agree with Chirp. So I'll go with another direction. So since he mentioned a lot of stuff I want to say, so I would say I'm very happy that we're promoting this, because he gave us hope, right? So for a lot, especially for a lot of Tibetans, but he gave us hope, and his message about compassion and humanity is very, very important. So I'll talk about more of the military experience I had and how I followed his message. So 망미를 다 아주 정말 background 먼저 말해라. 아니 그래 지게라 창원 지교다 당주 겨와 차원 지연대다 배교 지연 주로미 가지고 주요다. 아니 그래 통은 나 인제 날스다 compassion only 개청 배통도 가능나 당주 그래 마을 쪽을 하고 아니 망미 가와서 마주라. 아니 다 비교다 미 교우들은 못 배통을 당주 가능나 samudana o da huzuya daina damena de sam lapsangi da ya jiga jide ningje chedura kare da ama huzu kyo desha ya roba hande chune de samyura khas perfect example huzu ma sha abu dhabi la nima mangu tuyura abu dhabi la thapsang le ga chinye da samma swege de samma kya nepali le kya da 아니 지게도 배 통주던 것다 혼줄는데 혼주 출로롱만 미래 이게 약간 쇼만 럭주요만 한다 통이 술 셈발에 인제대 춘주는다 공사치 순대라 인제 컴패션 and humanity 오니 아니 그저 취치당 로가지어라 오니 지금 아니 통주마다 제니 이 계절로 시 다다로 지켜서 가진 데에도 아니 파주 기분 쇼래도 어쨌든 혼주 넘기고 교화티다 그래서 혼주 통주당 내워라 가는 가진 건 거는 가진 미래도에 혼주 배 통주당 돼 있어 마오레란다 혼주 아니 다 혼주 내지도 코로나스콜 셈축으로 빨리인데 아니 저랑 통화도 납상 규모로 쇼 웨이브로 지 아니 다 칼라사도 마치 지게 하나 경라 고송 통화도 납상 갸 하나 고에네 빨리 칼라 고에로 기재 til다는다 인제들 지어 막 그런가 예로바 하시어 근데 갸체 가이네 근데 어제 통주 통다 다 혼주 디데일로 근데 아니 수수 셈벌로 춘주는 인제의 개체물의 공사적인 메시지 compassion and humanity의 개체물로 돼서 막 인제에 대해서 로봇이 돼서 말이라 아니 시면 미 파주되네 디치다 다는 인지 라이저 a smile is contagious 레요 지부지냐 바 인지 짓는 is contagious 가능한 이 로봇이 제가 통해서 많이 건주에 지부지냐 제고죠 오다 파주 민들에 아주 지부지냐 레샤는 유라 그래서 아주 가능한 춘주는 나도 treat others how you want to be treated 레라 이제 제가 로치한테 두디 마치 temba 지루다 그래서 관주다 계시다 망미를 있는 리더십 포지션이라 당아주 춘주는 창념도 시험이 가시 딱 공부 차이는 지도 마인드셋 배 주티다 먼저 관주 배 temba 지다 이게 마주에니만 춘주는 있는 양의 내 삶에서다 they forget that right so you can't forget that don't forget where you came from 다 그래 leadership position에 가리네 don't forget that yes you're in a leadership position you have a goal to meet but you're also a human being treat others how you want to be treated. 내가 가리는 쉽게 빼먹은 걸 I'm very impatient. 권사쇼에 가지는 patience 거를 깨지시리다. 권사쇼에 가지는 쉬다 patience 거를 I'm very impatient. 이 부분에 impatience 빼다. 내 선물이다 선전. 오다 코라를 끼게 하는 신신을 납 신기민다. 다 patience 가리그래라 봐줘야 되는 인제 오다 코나의 background이 엔딩 와다 직관에 마시도 레민도 호라에 신나데 로아레샤 아니 에네네 신나시데 라시메도 봐줘야 야고차 아니 단대는 to thank you then life was only so my message is patience compassion and humanity 다 롭다 이네레 하이스쿨 이네레 미들 스쿨 이네레 아주 정말 통유래 양미 사이를 부하셔요래 관시보다 조금 제못해서 고는데 영내 로봇이 말하는 것이 have that compassion 로봇이 가지는 수수기 야이 누르시는 로봇이면은 파주대가 가래 건설대 compassion 내려다 메시지 best 치자 기억이 그래 오메 미셔버지가 나 로봇이 갈래서 또 많이 시버지 로봇은 best는 치다 so that's my biggest advice is no matter what you do don't forget compassion and humanity
한다 간서 audience네 지원일래 물어 근데 지워지 유스 거는도 오케이 지워요 처음에 지워요 났어 아니 다 지워매나 지워요 고모 지워요 지워매나 아니 다리 내가 좀 쉬운게 기대 추락다 추게 라이가 그냥 주주되는데 페르로 안 토치 쉬어니 아니 데 자기가 제일 지워다 especially the 망미까지 지워 망고지 열에 쌈들어 어디나 그냥 기 시방 자체는 비어요 어디나 지 그냥 쉬어니 아니 데 그냥 지워지 유로네
투블라야 도지 좋고 스웨다 방체에 이번에 키케에 칸라메티 근데 가시방면 주에 나타 베네핏 지어라 메디컬기 소소 판말라 요래기 요마네 부고도 요라 티 컨데레 디고로 찍듯이스키
the 지당 benefit 몸이라도 빼어버려 medical wise retirement wise 그린의 benefit 해버리다 그런 수원에 지 판말라 디 benefit 요는다 the kind of this you have to prove that your father, mother, whoever it is financially dependent on you. kasi kwanzugi financially dependent ina ani medical benefit that someone air. The financially dependent proof chimatuna ani benefit the name makana that suine 공케를 내 삼년이 디체저라 kana the mangmichi kumare shungile achne라 fed web library I think like in Minnesota, like I think like dental, medical, vision, everything includes like $160. The other than that, 비슷하게면라 이네 도 인삼스다 이네 원이 빠르다 파마주에나 financial dependent 케이스였다 파마디 랴치 투어 마네 라야다 랴 진에 디 비자 수교저라 디 earning 저라 sustain 치토에 말다 livelihood sustain 치토에 말네 이 proof 거다 제다 요리네 다 랑아디스 카보도 체 모니데
양장이요. 이니워들 얘기게 가게 되다 키라 리더 차사다. one time break ki lifetime break medical tiyorada pension kandeya kya next pugule yore kimile yore lai jora third person second person
so the only this the kare ye retirement the disability gunzu ye kimel da right da the pugula de age group yorda da pecha shona mangmile du college scholarship som yore ani mangmina yeshu para college duina 아무도 되는 것도 주이나 고등학교 때 scholarship 줘라. 또 망민이 된사도 scholarship 양 노가지 오늘 계속 표시 받는 거 수도 부라 제 so 이 for my example 이 부니자 이 college scholarship 이자 제바 so 그런 게 loss some coverage 더 요르다. 로다 가더니 so only transfer 제래 아니 야 state 내야 샤바제 like 그래 state ranking funding was only they give me the pool the best year다. 아니 retirement that the mainly 가래나 transfer the chair in 다다다 비싸지 오다. Cuz kunzu free the ching 뭐야 아리 중요해요. So there's a percentage you got to pay. It's only 2%. It's not that much, but you have to pay it every month. But if you do that, your wife or significant other gets that benefit. Not your kids though, just the significant other.
신바지 연구 교디 나스다 같아마캬 다다도 딘다 다 패션 문미 부부다 중에 여러 young generation ki high school 된도 사페바 이마라 지게 스코어란 기나 사미 participate 지도
갈라?
사페바 이마 가시 딘데 소 망미 스테이트 남 투아 나데 딜 뒤에 게 지키야 해나 가지 시 근데
다 지당 어디 제가 이 등기 나요도 high school에 있는 JRTC 라이저다 Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps 제엠나 college 라 Reserve Officer Training Corps 라이저다 원is join 마치나 기지 participate 치나 수수기 instructor get share다 아니 those participate share 지 가리 하고는나 you get to see competition 가리가리에 망미기 간데 지금에 조당한테 간데에 아니 제가 future 레요라 기지 수수 조액이 다 되버려나 아니 니만 제가 수요라 아니 수수 get share 몇 참어지야 so you can't do that but you have to get involved first
이케 니기도 센터티디 난 칼로 단다게 간주데 기분 기타 이슈다 가리는 순게 제주도 그게 돈데 겨로치 세고로 근데 그런 게 인지기는 마시야 다디 가르네 캬 그게 야고 겨요 됐으니 디가 유튜브 메일람 시대다 생게다 가리네 지금 플랫폼 세사다 지금 심쇼 봤었지다 지 제서지면 ങ്ങനെ 되지 그래도 우메람 거래는 할래 되겠다 어디 겨우는 이는 봐 이는 디 가리네 캬 인지고는 마티시 캬
this delay 나도 동의나 제버치디 치투르레 라디 the landing engineer when they asked me at the beginning they told me that we can speak in both English or Tibetan and the reason why I spoke in Tibetan in English is because I think the community or the people that are watching I hope that they were able to understand it better because the point that our President Lamulan made earlier was it's more important to get the message across than to at this time in this context to speak in Tibetan. I don't in any way discourage people from speaking Tibetan. I think it's very important. 되게 이 계신분들도 말하기에 되게 개규 원장님도 but in this context the message is more important and I think the way to do that hopefully with the young audience is to speak in English.
The online tour chidura. Online tour what is a difference for getting a scholarship? I'm sorry, for getting into I'm sorry, Army Reserve and Active Army.
Okay.
Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Reserve. So there's three components to a military. There's the active duty, which is full time. Then there's reserve, which is part time, and then Air National Guard, which is also National Guard is also part time. So the difference is with the active duty side, the funding comes from the federal. Just like the reserve, the funding comes from the federal, versus the guard, it comes from the state. right? So when you have a state budget versus a federal budget, Trump can talk about that. But like when you have a federal budget versus a state, the states is usually less because state has less budget than the federal. So in regards to the scholarship, if you want a full scholarship, I would highly recommend going active because you have more money to play with, right? So per se, versus a state, there's less money, so meaning less scholarship. But if you want to go, this is my biggest recommendation to a lot of people is regardless of where the money is, just think about it and see if it's right for you. Because the benefit, like I was talking about the question earlier, can you transfer benefits to your spouse or your family and stuff? The education benefit's the same. Medical is very different, but it's similar, right? So, but everything depends on where the money is coming from. So the scholarship and everything depends on if it's a federal side or a state side. So if you want to go reserve or active, most of that budget comes from the state, federal side, versus if you go guard, that comes from the state side, so it's more limited.
So 상물라다 대표교 토치 주연이 한데 고라니데 스피킹 미샬라데 퍼포먼스 지다지 교연이
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
이제 도대체